this is traditionally the deadest time of year if you follow the stuff that goes on with Apple, because we had WWDC back in June, and that was a big, here's all the new stuff that's coming. And in September, all the new stuff they talked about will come, but in between, nothing happens. So it's a bit of a dead time. So what I thought was, why don't we look at some of the things that are going to be coming up? Some of these things you probably already heard about, and maybe some of them you haven't, but the idea is I actually want to talk a little bit about what some of these things mean in the longer term. So the first thing that's happening is that all the numbering is changing for version numbers. Now that sort of sounds like it's a very superficial change, and it feels like, to be honest, the marketing department got in charge of some stuff over at Apple one day. But it's actually a really, really good change for everybody. Because if you kind of think about it now, if you've got a watch, you're on watch OS 10. If you've got a Mac, you're on Mac OS 10. iPad and iOS are 18. Vision OS is 2. And if you kind of sit there and go, will this work with that thing? And, trying to work out what's going to work with what, you've got to remember all these numbers. None of them have a match. Now you just know that if everything's on 26, it's going to work. And the year after, if it's all on 27, it's going to work. It means that for the next few years, while you're hanging on to older gear like we all do, it's going to be a bit of a pain because you're going to have to work out, does my 15 work with my 26 and does my 11 work with my, and all that kind of stuff. But over time, this will actually make life a lot easier for everybody. So I actually think that's a positive step forward. So who's got an Intel-based Mac still? This is your last Mac OS. Now that's normally, you sit there and go, whatever. But at some point, I'll stop doing security updates a couple of years along further, and then it sort of becomes a bit more of an issue for you. The one thing I will say is when you start talking about the system updates that come, we saw this week. The current version of Mac OS received updates early in the week, and older versions got them a couple of days later. Now that doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but here's how bad guys work. When they find out that there's a fault in something, they're now weaponizing it within 24 hours. So those 2 days that it took Apple to release updates for Sonoma and older versions of macOS, for those 2 days, there was potential vulnerability. Now, for most people, you might think, whatever. But if you're serious about your security, that may or may not be a bigger issue. I tend to be worried about these things, but I also hang around with a lot of people that worry about these things. So they make me worry a lot more than maybe I ought. But I always think it's a good idea to be safe. Thing number 3.
For the first time, we're introducing a universal design across our platforms. This unified design language creates a more harmonious experience as you move between products, while maintaining the qualities that make each unique. To achieve this, we began by rethinking the fundamental elements that make up our software. And it starts with an entirely new expressive material we call liquid glass. With the optical qualities of glass and a fluidity that only Apple can achieve, it transforms depending on your content or even your context and brings more clarity to navigation and controls. It beautifully refracts light and dynamically reacts to your movement with specular highlights. This material brings a new level of vitality to every aspect of your experience. From the smallest elements you interact with to larger ones, it responds in real time to your content and your input, creating a more lively experience that we think you'll find truly delightful. We've always cared deeply about every detail of our software design, and it's these moments of beauty, craft, and joy that bring our products to life. Our new design blurs the lines.
I'm going to stop it there, because the interesting thing here is when we used to look at stuff on our screen, it was effectively like someone had a pen and pencil and drew stuff on the screen. And when they wanted to add something to it, they just draw another thing on the screen. So everything was kind of just drawn on. The way the new look works is everything's more layered. So even if you look, for example, they do an animation of what the photos icon looks like. It used to be, if you remember, just a bunch of little coloured segments that were kind of just arranged like flower petals. Now they're actually layered on top of each other. So it's a little bit different. And what you start seeing is things are a little bit different when you look on the screen. So, for example, I've got my iPad running the beta version of iPad OS 26. And what you notice is that things kind of just sit over the top of each other rather than next to each other. It's kind of a subtle difference, but it means things are a little bit more dynamic on the screen. So for example, in Safari, the address bar is kind of there on the bottom when you want to do something, but as you scroll, it kind of disappears. But when you want it back, it's kind of always there. So things appear and disappear more dynamically, and they don't block out stuff anymore. So when something's on the screen, it doesn't block out what's behind it. It's a bit translucent, so you can still see behind it. So things are going to look a bit different. Where it really changes is that whether you're looking at your watch, your iPad, your phone, or your Mac, they're all going to look a lot more alike. And the same for TV OS if you've got an Apple TV. And I think, we used to complain that Mac OS was becoming more like iOS. It was like they were trying to smush the iPhone stuff onto the Mac. I kind of feel like it's going both ways now. There was things that were on the phone and on iPads that were making its way onto the Mac, and some of the stuff has disappeared the other way. Now, number 4 on my list is the one that I think is going to be really good fun for everybody, and I think everyone's going to like this if they do it. Messaging call filtering. When you get those phone calls, when people are trying to sell you something or scam you or whatever, you can actually now tell your phone to answer for you, and it will say, why are you calling? And if the person answers, you'll get a live transcript on your phone of what they say, assuming your phone does Apple Intelligence and all that stuff, so you know reasonably current phone. It also means things like, and you can see in the animation, when you get a text message from someone you don't know, it'll go into automatically, you can set it to go into a folder of unknown senders, and you can go and have a look at them and then decide whether you want to add them to your OK list or ignore them. And if something's spam, it'll actually go to a spam folder in messages as well. Anyone work in telemarketing here? Got friends who work in telemarketing? Because their life's going to get a lot harder. So there's some settings there that are going to appear in the phone for ask reason for calling. So when a call comes in from an unknown number, the phone will say, I'm asking the person what they're called, who they are and why they're calling, and you'll get the transcript. And then you can decide whether you hit the answer button. The other thing I haven't put up there is if you get put on hold now, your phone will actually say, oh, you can tell it you're on hold, and when they come off hold, it'll buzz you and let you know that you're off hold, which is kind of handy. Yeah. Particularly, I don't know, if you ring a bank, any of those places where you can spend hours on. So I reckon they're good things. Number 5, stuff's going to change on your iPad. You'll actually have proper window management. So you've got multiple applications on your screen. And the other thing that I think is really nifty is, this is where the Mac OS stuff has made its way across to other platforms. You'll have your minimize and maximize buttons that you're familiar with, and your close window buttons. So they're actually appearing on Windows. So you'll be able to arrange things on an iPad, particularly on a larger screen iPad, in a much more user-friendly kind of way than what we've been able to do before. Number 6, everything's a phone. You now, with Mac OS, if I sit at my desk and my phone rings, I can answer the phone off my laptop straight away. I can answer it on my iPad straight away. At the moment, I've got 2 iPhones going, because I've got the one I use and I've got the one that's running the beta software. I can pick up calls on any device. You'll be able to, take calls, listen to voicemails, do all that stuff. So if you're anything like me, where your phone's kind of nearby, but you're working on something else, you don't have to go and find your phone. Like, I spend more time looking for my phone than actually using it a lot of the time, I feel like. So being able to just answer calls straight off the laptop or whatever device I'm using is a really, really handy thing. 7. Who has friends that speak other languages, or who's anyone in the room is like me, bilingual or multilingual, or you end up talking to people whose English is not a first language? Does anyone know why I picked the Star Trek? Who wants a universal translator? You will now have universal translation for text messages, phone calls, FaceTimes, all those things. That's really handy if you're traveling or going to travel, when you want to go and talk to the hotel in some other country. They can talk in their native language over FaceTime, for example, and you get a live translation on your screen as you go. Super, super handy. Number 8, Spotlight kind of sucks, I think. Like, yeah, it's really nifty now. So when you Spotlight, if you do Command 1, 2, 3, or 4, you get some different options. So, and I'll get to the clipboard in a second. Is this going to play again? Otherwise, I'll make it play again. So you can see how it's got there. Now you can actually say, search my apps, search my files, search my universal clipboard. So the clipboard now, when you copy paste something, you only get one go. Now it holds a whole bunch of stuff, and it's not just the clipboard on your Mac. It's the clipboard from your phone, your iPad, and so on. So, you can copy and paste between devices now. All of those stuff gets bundled up, and you can go and search for what you've copied back into the clipboard through Spotlight. Super, super useful. It'll look for apps that are on your phone as well. So what I did, for example, is I can actually go search for an app, finds the one on my phone, hits the one on my phone, and then it'll launch the iPhone on the screen on my Mac and let me use the app directly, my iPhone directly from the Mac as well, because you've got iPhone mirroring was the thing that came last time around. So you'll now be able to open directly from Spotlight apps that are on your phone, and it'll launch the iPhone mirroring. So the thing that Apple's done with its ecosystem is it said, you don't just have a phone, you just don't have just a computer, and you don't just have a watch, whatever. All these things kind of bundle together and work together. One of the things I actually did on my website the other day on AustralianAppleNews.com, see, I snuck that in there, is I showed people how to access their watch from their phone. So you can control your Apple Watch from your phone directly as well, using some of the accessibility features. But I find that really handy. Sometimes, again, it's why should I have to go and find another device, log onto my, get onto my phone and do things? I can just do everything off one screen and be super productive. Number 10, the when. My gut says 18th, 19th September. That kind of puts you around the third week of September. I think that's roughly we're going to start seeing things.